Stay tuned for details on how the Great Resignation is the silver lining to make our workforce the Great Reorganization.
Welcome to Hire Breakthrough, a podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs like you take the breakdown out of their hiring breakthrough. If you're a founder who is ready to take back control and build your A-team without the overwhelm, you are in the right place. Your host, Kimon Napier, is a hiring strategist, speaker, consultant, and CEO of Hire Breakthrough. We're on a mission to help founders like you connect with the right talent to scale higher. Your time is way too valuable to stay stuck, and we want to show you how to stop chasing unicorns, take an intentional approach to your talent strategy, so you can make your next right hire. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Hire Breakthrough podcast. My name is Kimon Napier, aka the Hiring Strategist, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Great Resignation. So it is this phenomenon that has got companies all over the world in all industries super worried about their teams, super worried about our future work and the future of their organizations. So based off of what I just said, I want you to think for a moment and ask yourself the question, is the Great Resignation happening to prepare us to work differently? I want you to just really think on that and process for a moment, because what's happening is that millions of people in the United States of America want to quit their jobs. Many of them are not happy to stay in their jobs at the moment. So what's the reason for this? Why is it happening right now? Why is it taking companies by storm? A lot of HR leaders, executives, and just leadership in general, they don't understand what's going on right now. So I want to give you some statistics. 1 in 3 candidates who have sought out jobs in the past year, they looked within their organizations and companies first. This statistic is from the Gartner firm. Based off of that statistic, and if you ask yourself, what's the reason that this is happening? Why is this going on? Let's just scale that back a little bit. Now, we know that the Great Resignation has been going on for some time now, for quite a long time. And I would say it started with the whole gig economy. Everybody started to create a side hustle for themselves. People had 2 or 3 jobs and the whole 9 yards. I believe that's when it really started to shift, because candidates and employees started to realize that there is another way and a better way of doing things. So for some people, it means that they want to pursue their passions, or they're just simply not happy in their companies. This is what's taking the world and our workforce by storm. Many of our statistics are saying right now that there are just no jobs available, when that is just simply not the truth. The truth is there are plenty of jobs available, but candidates don't want the jobs. So rather than taking jobs at your companies, what candidates are doing is that they're finding a new way to do things. They're creating their own businesses, creating wealth and legacy for themselves. And that is why this is the Great Reorganization. I just absolutely love the term. I didn't coin it, but I heard this term in a McKinsey article. So kudos to McKinsey for coining the terminology. And the Great Reorganization is really about us working differently. So many people want to change the way that we work, and they want to change their workplace. They want to be able to grow with the company that they're with. And oftentimes, I can say it as many times, it's sad to say that many companies don't provide that opportunity at the moment for their employees. So the opportunity is just not present. So what's going on is that people are leaving with years of knowledge, years of experience to pursue their passions, or just to give it to another company. So another major shift that's going on is people just simply are just not making enough money to survive. We know at the time of this recording that there's a huge inflation issue here in America. And although things are getting more expensive, people are not necessarily making more in their companies. Now, that's a big realization and a revelation for a lot of companies, the pay rate. So I'm going to give you an example. I can't tell you how many times I've seen jobs and job descriptions that I'm reading through the details. And when I look at the pay rate, it's not in alignment and in integrity with what they're asking people to do. So just know this, candidates are smart. People are smart. They are intelligent. So candidates or employees, they are looking for the pay that they need in order to survive. It's just, enough said. And now when your company are not particularly honest and upfront about pay rates, so you have job descriptions that don't list the pay rate, or you have people in a company with the same position, but one person is making significantly more money than the other person. A lot of companies do that, but just remember, people do talk. So if you have people in the same role doing the exact same things, one is making more than the next one, it's bound to end up badly at some point in the future, especially if you don't have a compensation model to balance out that pay rate or things like that. So I'm saying this because the Great Resignation is really just a way to tell companies and businesses to wake up and change the way that you're doing things. So now what I want to do is go into detail about some steps that you can take in order to get above the Great Resignation so you can reframe and make your workforce part of the future of work.
If you haven't checked out the Hire Breakthrough Calculator yet, what are you waiting for? The Hire Breakthrough Calculator is a simplified tool allowing you to calculate the budget for your next hire minus the hassle. If you find yourself saying, I can't afford to hire, or need to create your hiring budget, this is the tool for you. Go to hirebreakthrough.com/calculator and check it out right now.
So the first thing I want to say is gone are the days where people are taking jobs for the sake of taking jobs. That's over. Many companies, they need to go through that mentality shift, because what used to be the case, and it could be the case right now for some companies, is that they'll hire anybody for a position. And if the person leaves or resigns, it's like, oh, well, whatever, I know I can find 20 more people. I have 20 more people lined up for this position and they'll be ready to start. That's not really the reality anymore. Every time you have to go through the hiring process over and over again, and this applies to larger companies and for small businesses, it's going to cost you money and it's going to cost you time. So candidates are seeing that they're not getting treated well. They see that often these companies are not in any integrity. They see that their superiors are not treating them well. They feel like they're not cared about. They feel like the company doesn't care about their own development. So rather than sitting in that, they're hitting the road. Basically, they're leaving to go find a place that they can call home, at least in a work context. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to shift this mentality that there are 10 million other people out there for this position. Yes, of course, you can find somebody for a vacant position, but at the same time, how long is it going to take you? And then the next question, right, is what is your recruitment budget? Do you really have the money and the time to put the effort into finding somebody? If you haven't hired a recruiter like myself and my team, there are all these questions that you need to ask yourself. And it's all about making a big difference. So ask yourself those questions. The second thing is that you need to value your employees. You need to value your team. They need to be connected to what they are meant to do. So what it simply means is that you need to be intentional and you need to have integrity about the roles that you're putting people in and what you're hiring people to do. Are you clear on what you need this person to come in and do for your company and for your business? If you're not clear, then the people that you're hiring will not be clear. It will be felt both ways. Also, if you do have the type of company where maybe somebody left and you need help in a particular area and you are adding additional responsibility to the plate of somebody, that can also cause a problem, particularly if that person is not good at, fulfilling those type of deeds. So like, let's say if you have an ops person and somebody left and you need them to take on some marketing task or some marketing projects, that could cause a huge issue here. What is going to end up happening is that you're going to find yourself in a situation where this person might resign suddenly because they just can't take it anymore. Or you'll find yourself being really sad and overwhelmed in the process because the things that you want to achieve, the goals that you're setting out, your key performance indicators for the position is just not happening the way you envision. So what it's going to do is cause a very hostile work environment for you and a hostile work environment for your employee. So value your employees. You have to do what it takes to retain them. And what that means is you need to have a plan in place as how you're going to grow your culture, how you're going to build that team. Of course, you're going to have your core values, you're going to have your mission, your vision, all of that, but it's going to evolve over time. That's going to just be the baseline. What that means is that in order for you to reap the benefits of creating a culture that evolves over time, creating a healthy culture, it is going to affect your attention in a good way. How are you going to retain the people you're hiring? Are you going to offer them professional development? Is there going to be a time for them to burst their concerns about the role? Are you getting to know them? Do you even care about them? Like, these are questions you need to ask yourself. And it's how you're going to understand what it takes to value your employees and do what it takes to retain them. Because you don't want to constantly just keep hiring for the sake of hiring in the same position over and over again. The third thing is that, now I know this might be controversial, you may not want to hear this, but you got to think about the pay rates for the roles in a competitive way. So if you're hiring somebody at a lower pay rate, this is for if they're contractor or employee. What it truly means is you're hiring this person to do X, Y, and Z. But if this person can't make a livelihood for themselves and their family on what it is you're paying them to do, what it means is that they're going to always be looking elsewhere to find that void in their financial management plan. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to give you an example. If you're paying this person, let's say like $40,000 a year, you know that is not sufficient enough for them to actually survive on this salary, depending on where they live, family factors, and just what's going on right now. They're always going to be looking for something else, meaning they're going to always be looking for another job. They may be looking for 2 other jobs. What I always hear from employers and business owners, they'll say things like, I feel like this person is not truly committed in my business. And they'll say that I'm upset that this person is not working as hard as I need them to work. Ask yourself the question, are you committed to them? Part of being a business owner and employer is that you're going to always be the leader. You're going to be the champion of change for the way things are happening in your company. And the little things that you do, the progressive moves and improvements that you make is actually going to affect the world and the workforce in a great way. That's the Great Reorganization right there. If you care about your employees, they're going to care about you. If you don't care about them, they're certainly not going to care about you. They won't go that extra mile because you're not doing it for them. It's twofold. This is just the honest truth. I know it's hurtful for some, but I'm saying this because I want you to prepare. A small business is a company that has 100 employees or less. And what it means is that there are a ton of small businesses out here. It applies to you just like it applies to larger companies. So really think about the rules that you're creating. Is it in integrity? Is it in alignment with my core values? And realistically ask yourself, can somebody thrive in the position that I'm creating? Now, the fourth thing is that I want to dive into reorganization just a little bit more, particularly when it comes to your employees creating legacy for themselves. Now, one of the questions I get all the time that I feel threatened that my employees or team members have other things going on besides the work that they're doing for me. A good example of that is like you might have an employee that's running a family business. They're running it, and oftentimes what happens is that founders who are employing people who are in a situation like that, they may feel a little bit threatened. But I want to tell you that I feel like this is a big mistake, particularly in a time like this and just our future of work. Now, we're in a time where things are no longer the same. Everybody wants to create some type of legacy for themselves, for their family, all of that, because people are smart. People know there's always a chance you're taking when you are working with a company. The company could fold, you can lose your job, and where would that leave you and your family? So people are creating alternatives to the work that they have to create some type of wealth for themselves. They are creating their plan B, their plan C, and their plan D. And people are just simply inspired to pursue their passion. So sometimes, people get passionate about certain things they do. I once was working with a founder whose one of her employees had a soap making business and it was doing very well. Now, because that founder felt her company wasn't doing particularly as well as she would have liked, and it wasn't necessarily hitting some of the goals, which were tied, of course, to finances, she started to feel a bit threatened. Now, I just want to make this upfront. That employee, their family business wasn't competing with this founder's business in any way, but there was a sense of jealousy. And it was a sense of, oh, is this person more focused on their own business rather than working with me just because it was successful? This happens a lot, especially with the gig economy. But my answer to that question and my answer to that situation is all a part of the Great Reorganization. You got to reframe that. People don't want to just sit in a day job all day. They don't want to just have a job. They want to pursue their passions. They want to create the legacy that I'd mentioned earlier. So if you have an employee who has an entrepreneurial spirit, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What it means is that some of the things that they might learn, they can apply in your own businesses, in your own companies, your startups. So it's a reframe. And I want you to think about that because it could actually have a lot of benefits for you. Now, if their performance is failing and they're not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing now, of course, that would open up a conversation as to, is this the job you really want, or are you focused on something else? But if they're performing, if they're hitting the goals you set for them, if they're, hitting metrics and all of that stuff, by all means, what's wrong with them pursuing their passions? Your startup, you created it based off of 9 times out of 10, people create their startups and companies from a passion. So again, this is all a part of the Great Reorganization. We have to rethink and reimagine that the way that we're working. We want people to be fulfilled. We don't just want people to just sit in a job just for the sake of sitting in a job. People are looking for their own happiness. There's a lot going on. The world is chaotic. And just remember, your employees and team members are humans just like you. Remember, with everything going on, they may be feeling in their personal lives, mentally, physically, and of course, in the workforce. So those are the 4 things that I want you to consider for the Great Reorganization. So what the Great Resignation is the Great Reorganization. So that's what I want you to take from this episode. Now, please be sure to do 2 things. Rate this podcast because it helps other business owners and founders get their hiring breakthrough, which of course is going to strengthen the overall economy. And subscribe to this podcast so you won't ever miss an episode. Thank you for listening to the Hire Breakthrough podcast. I'll talk to you on the next episode.
Are you ready to stop chasing unicorns and hire diverse, qualified talent, but you need help with the full hiring process? If so, be sure to visit hirebreakthrough.com/scale so our team can help make your next right hire today. This podcast is produced, engineered, and edited by CEO Rising Creative and Greatborn Studios.